Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we kind of help you, sift through all the noise and get to the most valuable insights from, like, all the information overload out there. I'm Ron, and today I'm joined by sales enablement expert Nova.
Hey, everyone.
We're here to unpack this article, 10 Sales Enablement KPIs to Measure Success in 2025.
Yes.
This article is it's a goldmine
Yeah.
of actionable advice, especially for those, sales and revenue leaders who are looking to boost performance and hit those ambitious revenue goals that you have.
That's right, Ron. We're going beyond just defining KPIs, and we're really going to dive deep into why they matter, how to choose the right ones, and most importantly, how to turn those numbers into action.
Exactly. So, Nova, for those who might be thinking KPIs are just another layer of data to,
Right.
ground in, why should our listeners, who are mostly sales and revenue leaders, really care about these KPIs?
Well, think about the challenges sales leaders face today, like increasing complex buyer journeys, pressure to demonstrate ROI.
Yeah.
Sales enablement KPIs, when used strategically, can actually help solve these problems. They act as a compass guiding your decisions, proving the value of your efforts, and getting sales and marketing teams on the same page.
Okay, I see how that's more than just tracking numbers, but there's a lot of talk about metrics versus KPIs. Can you break down the difference for us?
Absolutely. Imagine you're baking a cake.
Okay.
Metrics are like the individual ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs.
Okay.
They track specific activities like the number of sales calls made or content downloads. KPIs, on the other hand, are the finished cake, delicious and satisfying.
But
They measure the impact of those activities on your overall goals, like revenue growth or win rate.
so metrics track what's being done, while KPIs tell us if we're achieving what we set out to do. Got it. Now, let's dive into those 10 essential KPIs. The first one in the article is win rate, also known as conversion rate.
Right, win rate tells you how efficiently you're turning leads into customers. It's calculated by dividing the number of closed deals by the total number of opportunities. For example, if you had 100 opportunities and closed 25 deals, your win rate would be 25%. Healthy win rate indicates your sales team is effectively qualifying leads, handling objections, and ultimately closing those deals.
That makes sense, but a high win rate isn't the whole story, is it? We also need to consider the value of those deals, right?
You're absolutely right, Ron. That brings us to our next KPI: average deal size.
Okay.
It's not just about closing lots of deals, it's about closing deals that are profitable and sustainable for the business. To calculate this, you simply divide the total revenue from closed deals by the number of closed deals.
So if we're closing lots of small deals, our win rate might look good, but our average deal size might be low, which impacts revenue growth.
Yeah.
Starting to see how these KPIs connect.
That's exactly the point. And speaking of revenue growth, another KPI to watch is the number of opportunities created.
Okay.
More opportunities mean more potential for closed deals, which, as we've discussed, impacts both win rate and average deal size.
Okay, so it's all about keeping that pipeline full of potential deals. But getting those deals often involves face-to-face interaction. That's where meetings set comes into play, right?
Absolutely. This KPI measures how effective your reps are at securing those crucial meetings with prospects, whether virtual or in person. And it's not just about getting the meeting, it's about ensuring those meetings are productive and move the sales process forward.
Now, Nova, we know time is money, especially in sales. So I'm guessing that's where sales cycle length comes in.
Exactly. A shorter sales cycle generally means faster revenue generation. We measure this by looking at the average time it takes to move a deal from opportunity creation to closing.
So if we can streamline our sales process and move deals through the pipeline more efficiently, we can close more deals in less time, which is a win-win for everyone.
Precisely. Now let's talk about a KPI that's often at the top of a sales leader's mind: quota attainment.
Okay.
This one's all about hitting those targets and measuring individual sales performance.
This seems pretty straightforward. Are your reps hitting their numbers?
It is, but it's also about identifying why reps are or aren't hitting those targets.
Okay.
This KPI can reveal areas for improvement and provide insights for targeted coaching and development. For example, if you notice a consistent trend of reps missing their quotas, it might indicate a need for additional training or a reevaluation of your sales enablement strategy.
Okay, so it's not just about celebrating successes, it's also about analyzing those numbers to pinpoint areas where we can do better.
Exactly. And speaking of doing better, let's talk about sales content adoption.
Okay.
You can create a library of fantastic sales materials, but are your reps actually using them effectively? This KPI measures how often content is accessed, shared, and whether it's influencing buying decisions.
So it's not just about downloads or views, it's about active engagement and impact. Makes sense. But all this amazing content, requires the right tools to deliver and track it. Is that where tool adoption comes in?
You got it. And investing in shiny new sales tools is great, but they're only effective if your team actually uses them. This KPI tracks how your sales team interacts with those platforms, helping you identify areas where additional training or support might be needed to encourage wider adoption.
Right. We want to make sure those investments are actually translating into improved productivity. And results. Now bringing in new talent is crucial for growth. That's where time to productivity, also known as time to first sale, comes into play.
This KPI measures how quickly your new hires are getting up to speed and contributing to the team's success. It reveals the effectiveness of your onboarding and training programs. A shorter time to productivity means new recruits are absorbing information, applying their skills, and becoming productive members of the sales team sooner.
That's great for both the individual and the company. But even seasoned reps can get bogged down in non-selling activities. So I'm guessing time spent selling is all about maximizing those revenue-generating activities.
Absolutely. It's about ensuring your reps are spending their time on high-value tasks that drive the sales process forward. It's not just about quantity, though. It's about the quality and effectiveness of those selling activities. Sales enablement plays a crucial role here by providing reps with the tools and resources they need to streamline their workflows, automate repetitive tasks, and focus on those high-impact selling activities.
Okay, so we've covered all 10 KPIs, and I'm already starting to see how they paint a comprehensive picture of sales performance. But Nova, what are some of the biggest challenges in actually implementing these KPIs effectively?
That's a great question, Ron, and it's something we'll dive into deeper in the next part of our deep dive. But one of the most common challenges is breaking down those silos between sales and marketing.
That age-old battle. Why is it so important to get these two teams on the same page when it comes to KPIs?
When both teams are aligned on the same KPIs, it fosters collaboration and a shared understanding of what success looks like. They start speaking the same language, working towards the same goals, and celebrating successes together.
So it's about creating a unified approach to revenue generation,
Great.
where everyone's working together instead of operating in separate silos. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly, and that's just one of the challenges we'll be discussing.
Right.
We'll also explore how to get buy-in from leadership, create engaging content and training, and choose the right technology to support your efforts.
This is all starting to come together.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a solid understanding of why these KPIs are important and how they can help us address some of the biggest challenges in sales. In the next part, we'll dig into the practical side of things, how to turn all this data into action and achieve those ambitious sales goals.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll be back after a quick break to dive into the nitty-gritty of implementing these powerful KPIs. Stay tuned.
Sounds good. Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're ready to roll up our sleeves and get into the how-to of implementing these KPIs.
Because as we discussed before, simply tracking the numbers isn't enough.
Right, we need to turn data into actionable insights that, drive real improvement.
So where do we begin? How do we go from a list of KPIs to a concrete plan of action?
I'm all ears. What's step one?
The first step is to define your goals, not just vague aspirations, but concrete, measurable objectives.
Okay, define our goals. But we're talking about sales goals, right? Like increasing revenue or market share.
Exactly. But it's about getting specific instead of just saying, we want to increase revenue. What does that actually look like? By how much? By when? And which specific products or services are we focusing on?
So it's about setting those SMART goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That way we have a clear target to aim for.
Precisely. And once you have those SMART goals clearly defined, you need to identify the activities that will drive those goals forward.
Okay, identify the activities. So if our goal is to shorten the sales cycle, what are the specific actions that will help us achieve that?
That's a great example, Ron. If shortening the sales cycle is the goal, you might analyze your current process to pinpoint bottlenecks. Is there a delay in getting proposals out? Are leads getting stuck at a particular stage? Once you identify those bottlenecks, you can implement strategies to address them.
So it might involve streamlining our qualification process, providing reps with more effective sales tools, or even revamping our onboarding and training programs to equip them with the skills they need to move deals through the pipeline more efficiently.
Exactly. It's all about connecting those dots between your goals and the activities that will drive those goals forward, and this is where choosing the right KPIs becomes crucial.
Right, because as we discussed earlier, you don't want to get lost in a sea of data. It's about focusing on the KPIs that are most relevant to your specific goals and the activities that drive them.
Precisely, if your goal is to improve customer satisfaction, you wouldn't necessarily focus on time spent selling as your primary KPI. Instead, you'd look at metrics like customer churn rate, net promoter score, or customer lifetime value.
So it's about being selective And choosing the KPIs that will give you the most valuable insights into your progress towards those goals makes sense what comes next.
Once you've selected your KPIs, you need to establish a baseline.
A baseline. You mean like a starting point so we can measure our progress?
Precisely. You can't know if you're improving if you don't know where you're starting from. So you need to gather data on your current performance for each of your chosen KPIs.
So if our goal is to increase our win rate, we need to know what our current win rate is across different teams, products, or services. That way we can track how those rates change over time as we implement our sales enablement strategies.
You got it. Now, let's talk about tools in today's data-driven world. You need the right technology to track, analyze, and report on your KPIs effectively.
Right. I can't imagine trying to manage all of this with spreadsheets. It would be a nightmare.
You'd be swimming in a sea of numbers. Thankfully, there are some fantastic tools available that can make this process much more manageable. Your CRM system is an obvious starting point. It can track a lot of valuable sales data, but you might also consider investing in dedicated sales enablement platforms or other software that can help streamline your data analysis and reporting.
So it's about finding tools that can integrate with our existing systems, automate some of those data collection processes, and provide us with those visual dashboards that make it easy to see the big picture.
Precisely. And once you have the tools in place, you need to ensure that everyone understands what you're measuring and why.
Right, because if the sales team doesn't understand the importance of these KPIs or how they're being measured, they're not going to be very motivated to improve those numbers, are they?
You're exactly right. You need to clearly communicate what each KPI means, why it matters, and how it contributes to the overall success of the sales team. And this communication shouldn't be a one-time event. You need to talk about your KPIs regularly in team meetings, in individual coaching sessions, and in those performance reviews.
So it's about making those KPIs a part of our sales culture, not just some abstract numbers that live in a spreadsheet somewhere. We need to make sure everyone understands how those numbers connect to their work and to our overall goals.
Absolutely. And speaking of keeping those KPIs front and center, you need to be actively monitoring your progress.
Okay, monitoring progress. I imagine this is where those dashboards and reporting tools come in handy, right?
Absolutely. You need to be able to easily visualize those KPIs, see how they're trending over time, and identify any red flags or areas where things might be going off track.
So we're not just passively collecting data. We're actively analyzing it, looking for patterns, and drawing insights that can inform our sales enablement strategies. What do we do if we see things going off track?
That's where adaptation comes, and the sales landscape is constantly changing, so your KPIs and your strategies need to evolve as well if something isn't working. Don't be afraid to try something new. Maybe you need to adjust your targets, reevaluate your chosen KPIs, or even overhaul your entire sales enablement approach.
So it's about being agile, embracing those data-driven insights, and constantly iterating to find what works best for our team and our business.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. But all this focus on improvement can sometimes overshadow the wins.
You're right, Ron. While it's important to focus on those areas for improvement, don't forget to celebrate those wins along the way. When your team achieves those KPI targets, acknowledge their efforts, celebrate their successes, and use those wins to reinforce the value of your sales enablement efforts.
That's such an important point. Celebrating those wins can be a powerful motivator, not just for the individuals involved, but for the entire team. It creates a positive and supportive environment where everyone is striving to achieve those goals. It reminds everyone why we're tracking these numbers in the first place, to drive success and celebrate achievements.
Exactly. And when you create that kind of environment, it becomes much easier to implement those KPIs, track your progress, and ultimately drive those impressive results.
This has been incredibly helpful. We've gone from understanding why sales enablement KPIs are important to actually choosing them and setting ourselves up for success in implementing them.
I agree, Ron. We've covered a lot of ground here today, from defining those SMART goals and identifying the activities that drive them, to choosing the right KPIs, establishing baselines, leveraging technology, and embracing those data-driven insights. But it's important to remember that this is an ongoing process.
You're absolutely right. Implementing sales enablement KPIs isn't a one-time project. It's a continuous journey of improvement and optimization. I'm excited to keep this momentum going and see how these insights translate into real results for our listeners.
Exactly. And as you continue on that journey, it's important to remember that we're here to help. We'll wrap up our deep dive into sales enablement KPIs after a quick word from our sponsors. We'll leave you with some final thoughts and actionable takeaways.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
We're in the final stretch of our exploration of sales enablement KPIs.
This deep dive has been packed with valuable insights. Nova, I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of how to leverage data to drives sales performance.
I'm glad to hear that, Ron. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways and some actionable steps you can take right now to start implementing these KPIs in your own sales organization.
Sounds great. What are the most important things our listeners should remember from this deep dive?
First and foremost, sales enablement KPIs aren't just about tracking numbers. They're about understanding your sales performance and identifying areas for improvement.
Right. It's about using those numbers to make smarter decisions, optimize our processes, and empower our sales team to achieve those ambitious goals you set.
Exactly. The second key takeaway is that implementing these KPIs effectively requires a strategic approach. We can't just pick a few random metrics and hope for the best.
We need to align those KPIs with our specific goals, identify the activities that drive those goals, and establish clear baselines so we can measure our progress.
Precisely, and finally, remember that this is an ongoing process. The sales landscape is constantly evolving, so your KPIs and your strategies need to evolve as well.
So it's about being adaptable, embracing those data-driven insights, and constantly iterating to find what works best for our team and our business.
You got it. Now let's talk about those actionable steps. What can our listeners do right now to start putting these insights into practice?
Okay, actionable steps. I'm ready to take some notes.
The first step is to take a look at your current sales enablement efforts. Are you tracking any KPIs right now?
Yeah.
If so, are they the right ones? Or are they aligned with your specific goals?
So it's about doing an audit of our current practices and seeing if they're actually serving our needs.
Exactly. And once you have a clean understanding of your current state, the next step is to define those SMART goals we discussed earlier. What are you really trying to achieve with your sales enablement efforts?
Instead of just saying we want to increase sales, we need to get specific by how much, by when, and which products or services are we focusing on.
Precisely, once you have those goals in place, you can start to identify the activities that will drive those goals forward and choose the KPIs that will measure your progress.
So it's about connecting those dots between our goals, our activities, and our metrics. And don't forget those tools we discussed earlier.
Absolutely. There are some fantastic tools available that can automate data collection, provide insightful dashboards, and make it much easier to track and analyze your KPIs.
And finally, we need to communicate clearly with our team. Make sure they understand the importance of these KPIs, how they're being measured, and how their individual efforts contribute to the overall success of the sales organization.
Excellent point, Ron. When you create that shared understanding and that sense of ownership, it becomes much easier to drive those positive results.
I completely agree. We've covered a lot of ground here today, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to take their sales enablement efforts to the next level.
I do too. And remember, in a world of AI and automation, those human skills, relationship building, creative problem solving, and strategic thinking are more important than ever.
So as we embrace these data-driven insights, we can't forget to nurture those human elements that make a truly great sales team.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive, Ron.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep diving deeper.